guys, welcome to another episode of Renewed Minds. It's my pleasure to have Lisa and Chris on today. How are you guys doing?
Good, just hot. That's why we have a fan blowing on us.
There's a heat wave in the Northeast in America, so it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, I can imagine. Sorry about that. Brilliant. Yeah, it's such a pleasure to have you guys on regarding the topic today. I'll just briefly introduce Lisa and Chris. They run a platform called Been There, Got Out. I think that pretty much says it all. So, and also a legal abuse platform. And Lisa actually initially approached me and I was just attracted to her energy and what she was talking about in regards to this. And I just thought it'd be fantastic if we come together and do an episode that would educate, enlighten, and possibly also heal some people that don't know about these topics and these abuses that are going on. So I don't know if you guys just briefly want to introduce yourselves, your story, and how you got together, basically.
That's a huge question.
That could fill the whole podcast.
Yeah,
but
pretty much.
So I'll go first. I was in a 14-year marriage with a woman who is a narcissist. We have 2 kids together. My divorce took 3 years and cost $300,000 for no good reason. At least half of that time and money was wasted, as well as tons of emotional anguish and fear. You know, so I treasure my role as a dad to my 2 sons. So we've been apart for 7 years now. So I'm in a much better place. Been back to court several times, but nothing like what Lisa's gone through in the court system anyway.
My turn?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I was with a covert male narcissist, married for nearly 18 years and together for almost 20. We also have 2 kids. Both of them have just become adult. Well, one's 21, the other's 18, as of a couple of days ago, which is a relief to many people who are watching because we're done with the child stuff. I've been in the legal system going on for 7 years in family court and the appellate court. I've represented myself successfully for the past few years, and my case was just published in the Connecticut Law Journal and will be used as legal precedent. Because my ex lost 4 appeals against me, even though he had an attorney and I was representing myself, so I'm really proud of that. And I started this. I couldn't find anything like it, so I started a legal abuse support group just a couple of months ago. And we don't just have people from the United States, we have people from all over the world who have joined, because even though the laws are different, the issues are the same with family courts throughout the world. So we meet twice a week. We meet on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern time and Sundays at noon Eastern time, and people share their stories, get emotional support. We have a lot of access to expert resources who come in and speak. But the main goal that I do, and also Chris is helping a lot more with his own training, is to help victims of domestic violence and narcissistic abuse in particular strengthen their cases, because post-separation abuse, which is what happens after you leave the relationship, is another part of when you're stuck in the courtroom with a narcissist who can keep this process going for years and years and years.
Wow. And from your stories, honestly, I'm just so proud of you guys for what you're doing and how far you've come. And yeah, just fate bringing you guys together to set up this. It really is a distinct issue, I believe, worldwide. It's not particular to any kinds of people. And that's part of my passion for setting up this platform, to be able to reach out and also connect with like-minded people like yourselves in order to be able to reach out and heal people that are going through such abuses. So I just like to start off with you, Chris. One of the things that actually, I found most intriguing about your story is the fact that you both have a rare case of particularly narcissists. That in Chris's case, it was a rare malignant female narcissist. Most time, yeah.
Well, so, laughing at your use of the word rare.
Yeah,
well, yeah. I mean, according to what I've come across so far, but yeah, we don't have statistics yet. And also you, Lisa, obviously with the covert male narcissist. I mean, the last episode was on a covert female. So it just goes to show that, look, it can be from males, females, the different types, there exist in every shape and form. So, and another thing people need to like be aware of, as I always say, it's not just particular to intimate relationships. It can even be in the workplace. It can be in families, especially like even parents being narcissists, which we'll cover briefly as well. So I'd just like to start off with you, Chris, and your experiences, because I believe, you know, from the rare malignant female narcissist, it can go into things like, you know, entitlement, you know, sadistic, emotional, you know, abuse. And I think maybe even another thing is, I don't know if from your experiences, maybe they're like a female friend. So if you can just touch on like briefly your experiences on that.
Well, my relationship very much followed what is common in narcissistic relationships, with that sort of too good to be true, very fast beginning, fell into it very, very quickly. I think it was a year, we were together a year, we were already engaged. I hear stories of people like, I was together for a month. But over the year, it just slowly, it was like being in a cult. I was just sort of slowly groomed, and I would have never left. It's, you know, I always talk about this, that I'm a very resilient person because of some things that happened when I was younger.
Yeah, right.
And I always talk about how resilience, if you're extremely resilient, it can cut both ways. You can have too much, because I was never going to leave. And she ended up leaving me. But over, and you know, for a time I was like crying every day and miserable over this relationship. And I wanted it to go back to like the good old days. And now you know, not even now, but shortly thereafter, I realized there were no good old days. That was all like, it was red flags right from the beginning that I just didn't see, because, you know, I'm highly empathetic, and I'm sort of like, if you know the term white knight, you know, I want to, you know, I knew she had some mental health issues, and I was like, I can, you know, all she needs is a caring, supportive partner, and she'll blossom and have a very happy life. And I was going to save her, you know, yeah. But no, it didn't work out that way.
Yeah. So well, I mean, like in terms of like even your recovery period, I mean, because the trauma bond, I mean, how hard was it for you to like go through that process, and how long did it take for you to get over that?
To get over it?
Yeah, the trauma bond. And
so I have a story. I've not heard anybody else say this, but I was in therapy, right? I had realized that, you know, that narcissism was part of it. And I was in therapy, and in one therapy session, it dawned on me that she never loved me. Not in the way that normal, healthy, emotionally healthy people mean the word love. And when I realized that, I was like, there's nothing to mourn here. You know, there's like the whole thing was fake. So I could imagine some people reacted to that by being like even more miserable because it was all fake. I was like, I have nothing to be upset about. It was all just an act, you know? I guess it's like when you have a horrible nightmare. It's like when you have a horrible nightmare and you wake up and you think, you think the nightmare was real, and then it dawns on you, no, it wasn't real at all. I'm safe in my bed.
It's an interesting way to look at it, Chris, because some people, they might be like, wow, just devastated that like, whoa, this whole relationship was just a farce, and it can take them such a long time to get over that. So I think that's just even quite courageous of you, like, to go from it with that perspective, like, you know, there's nothing to mourn, and, you know, to help your healing process and recovery period through that. So I think that's brilliant that you.
That's rare. Yeah. That's really right.
And make no mistake, I was devastated for a period. I mean, even after I learned about her unfaithfulness, you know, an affair she had, another one that she had, I was still begging her to come back. You know, so I went through a period where it wasn't instantaneous by any stretch.
Wow. See, it's that in itself, like, that's probably even still through in the trauma bond phase, you doing the begging and stuff and thinking they have something of value that they can give to you, but really, you know, it's a case of knowing that, look, this is abuse you're going through, and that
it was very much recovery from that relationship was very much like, you know, they always talk about the stages of grief. I clearly went through that, and it was not a straight shot. It was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
It's always the case like that. Yeah, go on, Lisa.
I was going to say, I think that's why it's so important to be aware of this personality disorder, not to fixate on all the research, but to be aware of the predictable behaviors that they do, and to understand, you know, that you were used. Because when you realize, you know, what they've done and that they make you basically replaceable, you can start moving forward. Well, some of us can. You can start moving forward because you think, well, why should I let myself be played? I mean, I had a different experience, and I think, like most people, it was like, I can't believe I was with this person for 20 years. Like, I can't believe I'm the mother of his children, and he just, you know, I finally got him to left. I'm sure he would say that he left me. It doesn't really matter at this point, but that he could just like completely let go of the relationship with me and his 2 kids, and it's nothing. You know, it's people also think that these narcissists are capable of real love. Like, oh, well, they have to love their kids. You know, how could a parent not love his kids? Yeah. But a lot of them are, most of them that we've seen, they're just not. They're really not. It's just, you know, whatever serves them, and
their kids are an extension of themselves.
Right. And that's why the families can shift, because, you know, I'm sure about the golden child. So that's, say, the narcissistic parent's favorite, but that can change, because as soon as that child starts questioning, just like in a romantic relationship, as soon as you stop buying everything they're saying, or you gain your own independence, they don't like that. That's a threat to them.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with you on that. And perhaps we can move on to your experience now, Lisa, with your Covert male narcissist. And a question I was actually going to shift to both of you initially, I can leave it open to both of you to answer this as well, is first the maybe sexual discipline, because I believe this can apply to the Malignant and the Covert. Was there any experiences like that, Lisa, that you'd like to share?
Oh, sorry, you faded out for a second. So you were asking about the covert narcissist?
Yeah, the covert male narcissist, like in regards to like sexual discipline.
Sexual.
Sexual discipline.
Oh, you want the juicy stuff? Okay. I was like, forget how we met. Let's get to this sex.
And I'm picturing. I'm picturing.
You put this up. Be aware of this. We've got to talk about the stuff that, you know, some people might not even want to talk about or touch, but it's very important, and I think it also applies to Malignant. So I don't know if there's anything you might want to add to that as well, Chris. But yeah, you can go on, Lisa.
I'm picturing if you put this up on YouTube, there's a little box, because I do the YouTube videos all the time where you say, no, it's not meant for children.
Yeah. There's a box there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm like, my son is not home. Okay, good. The sex life of the covert male narcissist, in my experience and in the experience of many other women in particular that I've talked to, is interesting, because they have, first of all, they make you, they're incapable of intimacy. We know that. So a lot of times people have said that they've fallen, you know, like in Chris' situation, they have this like deep, like intense feeling of love, and the sex is amazing. Like, that wasn't like that for me at all. I felt like the first time that I kissed my ex-husband, I felt slightly repulsed, and he was actually the worst kisser that I ever had kissed, and I was just like, something is wrong. But all these other things on paper seemed really good about him. We seemed so compatible. So in my head, I was like, well, you know, even though I'm not attracted to him, like, maybe we could make it work because of all these other things that we had in common.
And it always shocks me when Lisa talks about that, because she's such a passionate person.
I was like, you're not getting into our stuff. But anyway, it just never. So the kissing was off, and the sex stuff, like from the beginning, it just didn't really work well. And I remember, you know, even though we got together when I was fairly young, but I had a fair amount of experience, I'll just say, and I had traveled and was very free and open, and feel that women should do what they want to do as well. So I definitely had reference points to compare him to. And I felt like I don't know, it just wasn't good. But that, you know, with other people, it had been fine and great. But he would say things like, you know, you have to do things a very specific way. You have to do them my way. And literally after we got married, he told me I had to go through a training period.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I had to go through training to learn how exactly he wanted things done. I won't get graphic, but you can imagine. And that, you know, everything had to be his way, and that, and he had like very, very specific things that he wanted that dealt with control and power and control and shifting roles. And he used to literally write out scripts, like sex scripts, that I would have to, so he used to type out scripts of like very specific dialogue that I would have to say and things that I would have to wear and how I'd have to act and exactly what I'd have to do. So it was really stressful because it was like auditioning all the time. It was like nothing to do with actual pleasure and making love and intimacy. It was all about performing a role that he required. And if ever I was like, well, can we just, you know, like have like without the whole rigmarole, he would be like, oh, you know, you're just so vanilla. And I was like, I've never heard that from anybody else. But
she's not vanilla.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But
it was just like so rigid and no fun. Yeah. It was like, it was stressful. And I think that many narcissists, especially covert narcissists who are not doing their grooming and amazing performances, are very rigid. And I actually think that they prefer to have fantasy sex with themselves. And this was told to me by my ex during a conversation, because that way they don't have to actually make the effort to try to please another person. And doesn't that make sense?
Concept. Yeah, that's an interesting concept.
Yeah, you're dealing with somebody who lies about a lot of things, but sometimes these bits of truth come out that are just amazing, and that was one of them.
Yeah, and it's like maybe something being 90% truth and the rest a lie. And I think very important for people to take note of this, because this all just stems down to control. Like, they're trying to get control of the whole situation, and people need to be aware of this, because that stuff is not normal at all, and people need to have an awareness of it. Always trusting your intuition as well. That's very important, that I think a lot of people might ignore, or you might have, or other people might have ignored in the past. So I'm glad you made that.
I want to say one other thing about that. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think that the objectification of the sex partner is very, very common. So, you know, my ex was a diagnosed sex addict, and he had more affairs than I can count, which I found out later, you know, and he justified all of them, but he would always try to blame me and say, if you don't do exactly what I want, like, this is why I'm going to go. He wouldn't say cheat. He'd say, I'm going to flirt. So, and then again, this is like at the very tail end of the marriage. So it wasn't like I knew about this and I said, fine. I was sort of like, oh boy. But, you know, they have like unusual, well, I mean, I guess in sex, nothing is unusual, but they have very specific things that they want. And they, at least in my experience, I was made to feel like I was a bad partner. And the other thing was, he always used to say that in order to make him happy in the relationship, the only thing that would make him happy in the relationship was to have sex his way, period. So whereas other people find joy in all kinds of ways, the narcissist that I was married to had one specific thing, and that was it. And would say that if he's unhappy, which of course narcissists are always unhappy in their relationship because they have that control, that it was my fault. And this is something that people really should be aware of, that they will make all kinds of demands in the bedroom, outside of the bedroom. You're never going to be able to fill their black gaping hole of a soul that they don't have. So you can't see yourself, and don't feel like you're a bad partner or a bad sex partner, because honestly, it has nothing to do with you.
Honestly, thank you so much for highlighting that, because I believe that is actually a very, very common theme in regards to whether it's a malignant or covert. And it's the fact that they'll try to guilt trip you to thinking you have an issue. Everyone knows that cheating is wrong. So there's absolutely no justification for that. But I think one thing that's really dangerous and people might tend to compromise is when they're emotionally attached to the narcissist, because you can't think logically or straight. So I think it's very important for people to note down this point that you said, Lisa. It's very important. And if people are noticing such red flags, it's time to take a step back and reevaluate the whole situation. So thanks so much for pointing that out, Lisa, for our audience.
And the last thing with that is a lot of male narcissists from the women that we've dealt with are porn addicts as well. And a lot of porn addicts also just objectify their partners. And that's an issue. And that was a big problem, in the marriage.
Yeah, definitely. So it's a point to note down and be aware of whether when seeing therapists or anything like that. Thanks so much for that, Lisa. The next theme I'd like us to discuss is the narcissistic projection. And I know we off camera we touched on this briefly, and it's a theme that I'm so passionate about and we'll do future discussions on, because I believe it's the highest form of gaslighting. And to know that an empath might be thinking they're a narcissist when the narcissist is calling them a narcissist, right, it can get really confusing. And for the empath, what ways, Chris, if you can interject as well, can an empath actually identify to reassure themselves that they're not a narcissist? And with any self-projection, narcissistic projection experiences you've both had. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if an empath is self-reflecting, that's kind of its own proof that they're not a narcissist, right? Because a narcissist has an inability to self-reflect. Yeah. So,
first point, yeah.
I don't know, Lisa, if you want to add to that, because I have something I want to say about projection.
I know what you want to say about that.
Yeah, I know as well.
But I want to answer the question first, which is how does an empath know that they're not the narcissist?
I know, and this is something that we hear all the time in our community, because like I said, even just with the sex stuff, they blame you and you therefore blame yourself.
Right. You lose your emotional center. Right. So you kind of don't know what's real anymore. So when they're calling you the abuser and they're blaming you for everything, you're like, like all spun around and wondering if it's true.
Right. So a lot of victims of narcissistic and emotional abuse believe that they are the one in the wrong. There's different types of abuse that manipulation techniques that narcissists and other personality disordered people will use. And we know about the projection, but often they'll make every problem in the relationship be blamed on the victim. And so I remember at the end of my marriage, when my ex knew we were heading for divorce, he used to say that I was the abuser. He'd say that I was abusing our kids. Of course, he had no nothing to support that. But I wondered later if he was trying to do it for some kind of custody thing, which of course never happened. But
very manipulative.
Yeah, he used to say, I want you to say it with me, Lisa. I'm an abuser. Say it out loud. Admit it. And I'd be like, all right, I know that you're the authority on many things, because he was also 7 years older. But I really, like, even self-reflecting, I'm like, I really am not an abusive person. Like, I have long-term relationships. None of my friends, none of my family, like, we'll have arguments, but no one has ever called me abusive or an abuser. But, you think about it because you trust this person's judgment. They've made themselves authority. And you think, what if I'm the problem? And that happens constantly with victims where they're like, maybe it's me, I'm responsible too. I mean, sure, everyone has responsibilities, but to think that you're a narcissist because your toxic partner called you a narcissist is not, you got to get your head cleared out. And that's why it's so important to learn that this is part of manipulation. It's part of gaslighting.
Definitely,
But-
definitely.
but-
I've got to give it to them for that high form of manipulation. Go on, Chris.
But getting back to projection, I knew that's the first. I mean, first of all, it is a classic narcissist trait. I mean, it's one of the big ones, and I knew that about my partner 9 years before we separated. It was the very first trait I noticed, and I knew it so well that anytime she'd accuse me of something, I'd wonder if maybe she was doing that thing, like cheating, right? So about 6 months after she left, we were still talking. It was before I had like kind of put boundaries in place, and I was still talking face to face with her. And she called me a narcissist. So I Googled it because I thought maybe that means she's a narcissist, which of course ended up being true. But I Googled it, and I don't know what article I came across first. It was probably on Wikipedia or something. But it listed out all the stuff from the what's called the DSM-5, what the definition of it is. And I was like, oh my God, my jaw hit the floor. And Lisa and I were already together at that point. And I knew there was, she was watching the really horrific struggles I was going through legally and, just the nutty things my ex was doing. And I said, this explains it. And I sent her the link to the article thinking, she'll understand what I'm dealing with. And she says, oh my God, me too.
But ours are at opposite ends of the spectrum because his is overt and mine is covert, but the traits are the same. A lack of empathy, lack of boundaries, like all the manipulation stuff. And I never, ever had heard of covert narcissism. The only thing I knew about narcissism for all that time I was with the person was, someone who's like a show off and full of themselves. I had no idea. And when Chris sent that article, it was like, we all remember the epiphany of when you're like, that's it. Oh, that's what it is.
The epiphany.
There's a reason for all this. It has the name. I'm not alone.
And then you start looking at all, like, oh my God, and like copying everything.
Remember, as I was saying, like tick, tick, tick. Oh my God, like tick.
Oh yeah.
No, seriously, it's like, and that's one thing I even noticed as well. Like, the behaviors might be different, but the characteristics are the same. They have the same kind of like traits. And even from my research, seeing that, I was like, wow, it's the same. So I think it's really important for guys to know both extreme spectrums to be able to identify, because the covert might be even more difficult to see, because it is, as it states, covert. So that's really important, guys. And thanks for shedding light on that, because I'm really passionate about, narcissistic projection. And
I want to say something, if you don't mind, about the technique that the covert used, that my ex used to use at parties to meet people. Because the overt uses very different techniques. So my ex, even though we were together, every time we went to a social occasion, he would always seek out women, and he'd want to share his abuse story. And he would try to find women who had also been abused, and he would paint himself as this sensitive, really good listener who wanted to connect on a deep level. And that's how he hunted his prey. I mean, that's how he hunted me, because I thought, oh, he's so understanding. He's an awful listener. He's good at reflecting back what I said. But that's what a covert does, is they will mirror everything you want to hear. They will act like they're paying attention. They will just parrot back the things you say.
That's the love bombing phase as well. Yeah.
Right. But it's not, it's very, very different from an overt. It's a very quiet, they make themselves move in as this very sensitive, caring, kind, understanding individual. And in the meantime, they're checking off all the things, like all your weaknesses. They're pushing this for quick intimacy. They'll keep you
Calculated.
Yep, with these fake intimate talks and stuff. And they're basically learning everything they can about you to use against you later. So you have to be, we've done a bunch of blogs and videos on that. You have to be very, very careful, because you're not going to notice it. It's really under the radar.
It really is. It really is. And I'm so glad you're exposing these tactics for people, because they need to be aware of this, and they need to be sensitive and have a renewed mind in regards to opening themselves up to certain situations like this that may make them vulnerable. And I'm glad you exposing so much light on this, because let's face it, Lisa and Chris, it's much more difficult for people to see when they're in it. It's much more difficult. So it's important that we're shedding light on this, be able to expose so people can think with a logical, hopefully, and straight mind on that. Thanks so much for, shedding light on that. And finally, I don't know if maybe we have enough time for, briefly, there's some scenarios that some people might have narcissistic parents. Is there like any, because that can be really tough. Is there any advice that you guys can perhaps give in regards to people that might have narcissistic parents? Because you can't change your parents at the end of the day. They're your parents for life. So.
Well, our situations are very different. In Lisa's case, her ex checked out. He's not even involved at all. He has no contact with their kids. Mine, I share custody. It's called pretty much 50-50. So it's probably my front and center biggest worry in my life right now is how do I help them grow up to be healthy? I have two boys, they're teenagers. How do I help them to grow up to be emotionally healthy as adults? And a lot of the research that I've read or we've come across and things that therapists have told us, as long as, it's like the healthy parent needs to work overtime. As long as the healthy parent does a really sound job, the kids have a good chance. And there was a quote that I'm not sure where Lisa got it, but it was, they'll always walk with a limp.
Oh, Rosemary.
Okay. So, yeah.
Our friend and lawyer.
Yeah. So, they're being raised with one parent as a narcissist it's going to leave some scars. But the goal is to have those be scars that you can deal with. And it took a long time. I'll share one specific technique that I came up with recently that is working really, really well from a co-parenting standpoint. My ex did a couple of things that were just not okay. She's mean. So she makes a lot of like cutting remarks about other people, and she's very insulting and that kind of thing. And I know my boys see that all the time. I don't have to see them see it to know they see it. Yeah, but she gave one example that I did witness. And I sat down with my boys and talked about it. And I said, when you're with your mother, she makes the rules. She's the parent. She's on duty. When you're with me, I'm the one making the rules. I'm on duty. I'm not going to say anything disparaging about mom. Your life with her is your life with her. But I want to let you know that I witnessed this thing, and we're not that way. It was mean. I didn't like it. I don't want you to behave that way. I can't do anything about it, but that's not who we are. So I separate. I didn't say mom's bad. I said what mom did. I don't agree with what mom did, and that I hope you're not that kind of person. And I did it with a couple other things subsequently, and especially that first time, my boys' faces, it's like a burden was lifted from them. So they don't say a lot. They're kind of stereotypical males. They're a little, stoic, but I could see it in their faces that it was like validating to probably how they felt about this stuff already.
Wow, yeah, that's very deep, very profound. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Lisa?
Well, I have what many people consider a dream situation because my ex is completely checked out and is not involved at all in my kids' lives basically since we got him out of the house. Even though we do have joint legal custody, he has not used any of his visitation time ever. So we used to wonder, Chris and I used to say, who is the luckier one? Is it worse to have a narcissistic parent, or is it worse to have a parent that abandons kids? And it's an interesting question, and we put it out to our community, and everyone agrees it's better to have the parent out of the picture. It takes a lot of work, parent, to the parent that has to take care of the kids, the protective parent.
Yeah, Lisa's a full-time
I'm a sole parent, so I'm the only one who parents.
I get half the week off, but I've got a bad influence with my kids during that time. So
not him.
I know. Yeah, that was tough. Yeah.
There's a lot involved with being the only one But and it's hard, especially right after the split with the parent. People cannot fathom why this is the way it is. They cannot, like I said earlier in the conversation, they think, how could a father, just not care about his kids? Well, that's the honest truth about it. And even the ones who are often involved, the narcissists who are involved in their kids' life, a lot of times they're involved because they're using the kids against the other parent.
Yeah, I find that's very common. Yeah.
Yes. It's very hard. I wasn't sure when you first asked the question if you were talking about whether we have narcissistic parents ourselves.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Because I don't think that was an issue, but that's a whole other topic. And that's another one that's very popular to discuss in our community. Like, why are we attracted to these types of people? Another topic. But yeah, it is very tricky. Now, my kids are the opposite of Chris's kids because they are completely aware of what they are dealing with, because it was so crazy and confusing from the beginning. It's like, here they thought they had this really, well, I thought they had this really loving, caring father who was part of their daily life. And all of a sudden he leaves and moves away, like 35 minutes away, and like never bothers to stay in touch.
Must have been difficult for them to process that.
It was. And I would say it took 2 years, solid years of like, oh my gosh, like therapists and trying to find people that could help support them, until they did, he would breadcrumb them. He would occasionally get in touch with little things that he would use the time to bash me, and just offer them things and then withdraw. And, in the meantime, we're still in court together. But the kids got to a point where it always was, but they started noticing every even little tiny bit of contact they'd have with him would leave them feeling so bad about themselves. And so finally it was like, and again, my kids were always a lot older because we got them out when they were teenagers. But it was like, if somebody makes you feel that way, what are you getting from the relationship? Like, okay, I know that's your father, but every time you're in touch, like you feel horrible. You're old enough to make a decision what to do.
Oh, that's
but this is the truth of what these kids deal with. And so they decided, I'm going to go no contact. And it certainly was, their decision, and they were definitely old enough to make that decision. And I have to tell you, the moment they went no contact, and then subsequently we had to go to restraining order for my daughter. Against her father, which we did get for a while. That was the point that they finally started healing, is when they didn't have the person manipulating them, psychologically abusing them, using them. They could just sort of.
I'm just even trying to process that. Like, it must be for a child to go no contact with a parent. That must be difficult. I've not even thought of that scenario, but yeah, that must be incredible. I'm sure you gave them a lot of support through that as well.
Yeah, well, not just me, but luckily they had a wide range of support. Who, some of those people still continue to help them. My son actually did a podcast on Slam the Gavel. About what it's like growing up with a narcissistic father, because so many people in our community were like, they're terrified. What's going to happen to my kids? Are they going to be, and that's how I felt too when my kids were younger, like they're going to be destroyed for life because look, their father abandoned them. My daughter, this is her first male role model, and he's abandoned her. Like, how is she ever going to have healthy relationships? But I think in a lot of ways, my kids are way more emotionally mature. They have learned how to set boundaries in general because they've had to do it with a father who's abusive toward them. They're way more aware than their peers and than most adults because they know the warning signs. They're really checked in with their own feelings. So they're emotionally healthy. Unfortunately, this is what's happened. They don't have, they understand they have a parent that's incapable of actually loving them. But with that knowledge, they have to move forward, and they know that everybody has pain. Everybody has tremendous burdens in their life. This happens to be theirs.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that fact that, you don't have to get to a certain age to understand all these concepts. You really don't. And the earlier, the better, because emotional maturity, there are a lot of people that are full-grown adults that don't have emotional maturity. So I think it's great, absolutely fantastic that your kids already having that understanding at such a young age, and it's only just going to bode well for their future relationships, not just intimate relationships, but general relationships, co-worker relationships, relationships in any form in society. So I think that's a great point, and I think it's good for even parents and people to be aware of that, and to raise their kids to be emotionally stable and eventually be emotionally mature, because it's not everyone that is at the end of the day.
It's a lot of work, and I think it's more work for someone like Chris and most people who do have a toxic person still involved and just using the kids, just using the kids.
And really, you can't just sit down, like in my case, in a lot of cases, you can't just sit down with the kids and say the other parents are narcissists, that's why they behave this way.
Never.
Because, that's custody problem, huge custody problem, like right away. And at least all kinds of other problems. But so that's why it's less common for kids like Lisa's kids, who got it at an early age. It's more common for kids to be in their 20s or even their 30s when they realize something's off about one of the parents. And one of our therapists we know says they always get it eventually, but it's often not until adulthood. So I'm virtually certain that's what's going to happen in my case. But I'll be there to help them pick up the pieces and say, there's a reason for this. Like, I'll teach you if you want to know. But it's not happening soon, I don't think.
That's brilliant. And I hope our audience, we've taken down these points from Chris and Lisa. If anyone's going through similar situations, they can take heed these advices and implement it within their lives. And finally, just to close off, hope. Is there any hope for people? I don't know if the advice you might want to give Lisa and Chris in terms of self-love, trying to have fun in your life again, loving yourself, and just trying to move forward. If someone is in a situation where they've established that, okay, this is the situation with the narcissist and they're ready to heal, move on with their lives. Obviously, we know that's a process to heal. But any advices you can give in regards to hope and just self-love, we'd appreciate that for our audience.
That's an enormous topic. That's another complete episode.
I have a couple of short things. So for me, when I was still at the tail end of the marriage, going crazy, I stumbled. I actually, stress causes a lot of health problems, including injuries, and I had a sports injury, which I ended up in physical therapy for, and I landed at a gym, which I had never been a gym rat, but I had to go to a gym to use the machines to get better from this back injury. And I stumbled on this awesome kickboxing class, and the teacher also taught hip hop. And so he did dance and he did kickboxing, and I immediately fell in love with his teaching and him and just the awesome energy in his class. And I started going, and, I was dealing with so much crap, but to be in there and to be kicking and dancing, the different classes, it got there would be fleeting moments where it would be off my mind, my horrible situation would be off my mind. So the oxytocin, the pleasure hormones that happen with exercise really helped me physically get better. I got in some of the best shape of my life, and I started making new friends. So that's a very important piece of advice I would give people is you need to get in physical good shape. So find something that you enjoy doing. And if there's a way, I know we still are at the tail end of COVID, or hopefully the tail end, but if there's a way that you can interact with other people, that's really, really important. But you got to get physically strong, because for a lot of people, especially those who share children, this battle will not end, even with a breakup. And your body needs to heal, not just your brain, but your body will help your brain heal by getting those pleasure hormones in. The other thing is regarding fun. I got lucky, and this is for another episode about how to find true healthy love after coming out of narcissistic abuse.
Oh yeah, you'll be coming on again.
yeah. My thing was I just want to have fun. I have been suffering for years, and now he's gone. What do I want to do? And when Chris and I met, Chris just used to make me laugh. Like I met him and I was like, well, he still does, but I was like, I said, I'm one of these people, I don't really laugh out loud that often. And that wasn't true. It was just who I had been with.
Yeah.
You know, and Chris got me laughing, and to the ability to be able to laugh with someone it's more powerful than you can imagine. If you don't have a person that you can laugh with that makes you laugh, watch funny movies, like just inundate yourself with like light, fun, fluffy, anything, just light.
Sure.
Yeah.
But you're totally right that it can feel utterly hopeless because you've been emotionally destroyed,
Yeah.
But we meet people. I remember I was 48 when I separated from my ex, and I remember this kind of irrational fear, like I was going to turn 50 in a year and a half, and I'm going to be alone for my 50th birthday. That was the fear. I wasn't even alone for my 49th birthday. I'm at least before that. And we meet people all the time who are like in their 60s and their 70s. They were 30, 40-year relationships, abusive relationships, all that time. And they get out and they have wonderful lives. Once you got to go through some stuff. But on the other side, it's so much better. So there should be hope for anyone. Anyone who's listening to this, have hope. It's not hopeless. Your life is not over, no matter how old you are, no matter how long you've been with your partner.
And
the hope walk.
Yes, pitch it.
So we have a thing for people in these situations on BeenThereGotOut.com. Right on the top menu, it says Hope Wall, and it's all these little stories. Some are video, some are audio, a couple are written, that people we've met. They just share their inspirational stories.
Yes.
So if you lack hope, these are all people who were abuse victims talking about how much better life is on the other side.
Right. So I had a question. How has your life visibly improved after getting out of a toxic relationship? So we have men, women from different, all different backgrounds that talk about in 30 seconds to a minute how their lives have visibly improved. We have at least one couple on there now. We have to start collecting the stories because we
need more.
Yeah, we haven't.
Definitely. I'll definitely be
stories.
putting a link down to your sites as well on the channel. No, that's brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic. And I think, like you guys have said, it's so important, to know that and know that like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. The importance of self-love, having fun again, connecting with people. It's so vital to getting yourself back. And I also love the fact there's something I'm passionate about that I emphasize, that you mentioned the physical aspect as well, because everything's connected, mind, body, soul, and this is what it's all about, having a renewed mind. Also to knowing that the importance of exercise as well on your body, whether it be exercise, meditation, it's all encompassing, and making sure you're at one and at peace with yourself, because one can't function without the other. If your spirit is down, eventually your body will be down, and vice versa. So yeah, brilliant. Thanks so much for that. And touching on that point on your site, to close off, Lisa, I don't know if you can just expand on your legal abuse support network, how people can reach out to you in regards to that, and just a brief background on what it's about so people can know about it. Cheers.
Okay. So, like I said, I have been, and I am still battling my narcissistic abusive ex in the legal system, going on 7 years, and in 2 different states. Even though I have been successful, I have excellent orders on paper, I am trying to get the courts to enforce the orders. And I thought that my story was so extreme that I was like the only one I had heard of, maybe a couple of random people, but that it was like just this strange thing. But in the process of a lot of the workshops that Chris and I have done, we would interview experts on the topic. And I found out about legal abuse from this organization called DV Leap in Washington, D.C., which helps domestic violence victims at the appellate court level try to overturn bad trial court decisions. So I interviewed their legal director, and she said that just in America alone, 80,000 people, and this doesn't include the rest of the world, and we know there are people all over this planet dealing with abusers in the legal system who basically weaponize the court. And their goal, and I always tell this to the people in our group, their goal is to wear you out and bleed you dry financially. And it is so important to understand how the family court system works, because it's, like I said, it doesn't matter what the individual laws are. The system seems to be the same throughout the world, where these types of people use the court as a stage, and a lot of times they have more money than their victims, and they just will drag a case out on and on and on, and the victim gets so tired and they can't go on. So we just started the legal abuse support group like 2 months ago.
End of April.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And we've had a number of people sign up. It's like we meet on, like I said, Wednesdays, so tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern time, and Sundays at noon Eastern time. But there tends to be small groups that come in. People generally, share what's going on. They have specific questions on how to handle a situation. And then they have...
We don't give legal advice.
No legal advice.
But just ideas.
Right. But I think it's so helpful, first of all, because most, if not all, these people who come in are like, nobody gets it except you guys. Like, none of my friends and family, they love me, but they can't understand, because in our minds, people think that the justice system is supposed to give you justice when you need it.
The irony
is so slow and so unfair
and so corrupt in many cases.
That, and everywhere that to go in and being like, I'm going to have my day in court, he's going to get punished. They're like, it's just completely wrong. And people come in shattered because they can't believe that they've lost their situation, or they, just that things have gone the way they have. So there are very specific techniques and strategies that are involved if you are going to basically train for the marathon of post-separation abuse in the legal system. And I know I have been victorious and I feel triumphant, but it's still hard because I have to wait for the final, for someone to do something about it. So anyway, the legal abuse support group is for anybody, anywhere in the world, to get this emotional support, guidance. We have experts come in. We've had in the past 2 months, 2 different experts that deal with custody issues, that can help, that take questions from the audience on what they should do to strengthen their case. That's the goal, is you want people to learn how to strengthen their case, to document properly, to not waste time, to understand what they're dealing with, and win.
Brilliant.
So
that's absolutely fantastic. And like I say, I'm just so proud of you guys for what you're doing and how you're actually helping people and impacting their lives in regards to having this support network. So I'll definitely put a link down to that for people that are in similar scenarios that want to also leverage on this support group network for that. But yeah, thanks so much, Lisa, for that. And thank you so much, Chris. I just want to thank you guys for coming on today. Hopefully in future, we'll be able to welcome you for some more episodes to discuss a wealth and array of other topics.
Yes.
Well, it was fun. It's a real pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Hi guys, so I hope we received a lot of value with that couple. Absolutely fantastic couple, in my opinion. They're doing really great things with their legal abuse support network. Hope we got some insight into also the rare covert male narcissist, the malignant female narcissist. Might be rare in some instances, but there's just so much of this out there in different forms, and it's important for people to also be aware that they do have the same character traits and stuff, but can just appear in different forms, and it's important to also be able to identify that and be able to protect yourself. Keep liking, keep subscribing. Thanks so much for the support. I'll be launching more episodes, potential more video reviews as well, to get people educated on this topic and to spread the knowledge. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode of Renewed Minds. Peace out.